for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Welcome, Fade to Black, Bespoke Radio. That's right, for the masses. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? It is Thursday. That's right. September 27th, 2018. 273 days into the new year, just 92 days left. As always, we are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? Yeah, it's going to be one of those nights tonight on the show. And first off, very excited, very special guest, Dean Radin is here. Finally. I know. We're going to be discussing, for the first time on Fade to Black, by the way, his career, the science of parapsychology. Yes, we're going to discuss the CIA and Stargate. And his latest book, which is called Real Magic. And the links for Real Magic are right there at jimmychurchradio.com. You can go and check out the book. It is, it's one of those reads. It's one of those reads. And Dean Radin is joining us tonight. And again, tonight, no fader night, okay? No open lines tonight. It's probably the first time that we've ever done this, in that we've gone 4 straight nights this week, 4 shows, 4 amazing guests. And not to have a fader night on Thursday night, which we've been doing that for years, right? And feels strange to me. But when we have the opportunity to have on a guest like Dean Radin, everything changes. That's it. I ignore the audience. I ignore the fun of open lines, because we're going to engage in conversation tonight that I've been looking forward to for a very long time. Okay, so get ready for that. Dean will be with us at the bottom of the hour. Don't forget, all of our social media stuff is right there at jimmychurchradio.com, on stellar.com, ONSTELLAR.com. Go and sign up, register. It is the next great social media platform built for our community. It's right there on stellar.com. Also, Twitter. Okay, very simple, at JChurchRadio. And what you want to do, follow me at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Every single night I announce it. We're going to go through 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 tweets on this show with you. All right, now, when you hear me say something like that, you need to go over and check out the hashtag F2B feed. It's really that simple. and you will see what goes on there. It is so cool. Come over and engage in the conversation with all of the other Fadernauts. Hashtag F2B. Now, hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black questions. All right, it's that simple. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Okay, now, I didn't announce this. I made a little blurb on Twitter about this right before the show. But some huge breaking news, and exclusively right now I'm going to do it. Let's get to it. To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, Inc. has just released their semi-annual financial report to the Securities and Exchange Commission. That's right, the SEC in Washington, D.C. You can view the entire report and filing at sec.gov. Now, I'm not an accountant, but I will break down what I can for you in just a few minutes. The report was signed by Tom DeLonge, Louis Tomasino, James Jim Semivan, and Harold Putoff. Signed 2 days ago on September 25th. Okay? All right. Stick around. I'll break it down for you the best that I can in just a few minutes. Other breaking news. The University of Central Florida is now selling Martian dirt for $20 a kilogram plus shipping. This is not fake news, by the way. The team of UCF astrophysicists has developed a scientifically based standardized method for creating Martian and asteroid soil known as simulants. That's SIMULANTS, simulants. And first off, you got to ask why. Well, scientists are looking for ways to grow food on Mars and need to test their techniques on soil that most closely resembles the stuff on Mars. The team already has about 30 pending orders, including one from Kennedy Space Center for a half a ton of the stuff. I got to get me a kilogram of Martian dirt. It just sounds like fun. Some Martian mud pies. Yeah, and you can get it. University of Central Florida. Now, also breaking news today, a new hidden Mayan pyramid has been found among thousands of ancient Maya structures revealed by new aerial survey using LIDAR by an international team of archaeologists in northern Guatemala. Yeah, you should see it too. It is ginormous. I'll get the links up over here on Twitter during the break. And also, huge breaking news for all of you fast food fanatics out there, because McDonald's announced today that the 7 classic burgers on its menu are now served almost entirely without unhealthy additives. That means everything from a plain hamburger to the restaurant's signature Big Mac sandwich is now available without artificial flavoring, food coloring, or preservatives. There you go. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You can do it just $2 a month. And it's there for you that are not listening to us live. And you need the podcast. You need an app. You just need to listen to Fade to Black the next day on the way to work because you're sleeping during the show. I get that. Well, you can do it. It's just $2 per month. We have over 900 archive shows right there for you. Go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the podcast banner. You can also become a Fadernaut over in our membership section on the site. And all of that is very simple to do. Just click on it and get what you need to do. You can get downloadable MP3s without commercials, right? So you can do whatever you want with it. You can also get autographed shirts and hats and all that fun stuff. Become a Fadernaut today over in our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. And while you're there, on our site, jimmychurchradio.com, visit all of our sponsors by clicking on their banners. That's how this show happens. Just like any other radio program, we have sponsors. We have great sponsors that have been with us since the beginning that have supported this show. It's really that simple. Just click on the banners. All the promo codes are right there, jimmychurchradio.com. Let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to today, Meatloaf, the one and only. Today is 71 years old. Gwyneth Paltrow today is 46. And not only does she make the list because of the Royal Tenenbaums, and I know you expect me to say that, but there's a really cool movie that she was in, a little independent sci-fi film called Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. And if you've never seen that film, go and check it out. The technology, how that film was done, literally in an apartment, at least the first versions of it. It's an incredible film, great special effects, Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. And, of course, she plays Pepper Potts in all of those Marvel films. Also today, I've got to say it, and I will, Sean Cassidy today is 60. On this day in history, in 1536, Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII, is executed on charges including adultery, incest, and conspiracy against the king. And here you go. Here's our Fader fact. Are you ready? The bumblebee bat is not only the world's smallest bat, but it's also the world's smallest mammal. It weighs in at only 2 grams. And there's your Fader fact. Tonight, very special guest, Dean Radin, is here. We're going to talk about his new book. It is the first time he's been on the show, but his new book is Real Magic. And Dean has always been on the forefront of science and the mind. And we're going to go through all of it tonight right here on Fade to Black. Now, I mentioned earlier this breaking news. Let me hit my Fade to Black coffee before I get to this, because it's pretty insane. As I mentioned at the top of the show, To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, Inc. has just released their semi-annual financial report to the Securities and Exchange Commission. That's right, the SEC in Washington, D.C. And you can read the entire report and filing on sec.gov. And I also stated that I'm not an accountant. I'm not. But after reading through the full report, a few things really stick out. Again, the report was signed by Tom DeLonge, Louis Tomasino, James Jim Semivan, and Harold Putoff just 2 days ago on September 25th. Now, the opening of the filing has your basic balance sheet, and I'll get to that in a second. But when you scroll down, you will find a section called Note 2. In Note 2 of the filing, it reads as follows. Now, I need you to listen to every word. This is a direct quote from the report, and I quote now. The accompanying financial statements have been prepared on an ongoing concern basis, which contemplates the realization of assets and the satisfaction of liabilities in the normal course of business. The company has incurred losses from operations and has accumulated a deficit at June 30th, 2018 of $37,432,000. These factors raise doubt about the company's ability to continue as a going concern, period, end quote. Again, I'm not an accountant. I'm not sure what this really says. Okay? I see a debt of $37,432,000, and I see the next line that says, this raises doubt about the company's ability to continue as a going concern. But next, the filing opens at the top with item 1, which says, and again, I quote, "We have continued with our business formation tasks, including operation of the entertainment division. While progress on program initiatives is still pending sufficient funding, the company was able to achieve the following during interim 2018. Number 1, launched community of interest website. Number 2, continued ongoing meetings with potential strategic partners, including discussions with the U.S. government. Number 3, prepared to launch the ATOM research project to investigate materials relevant to its future plans in space-time metric engineering, STME. Number 3, officially released novel Poet Anderson in Darkness. And 4, closed on $1,026,000 of funding from its Regulation A offering. It's this last point that is very interesting because on the TTSA website, they had a counter showing $2.5 million raised so far. And this number never changed. It just stayed at $2.5 million all year. But this filing shows only $1,026,424. Now, that ticker, the 2.5 million ticker, never went to 2.6, never went to 2.7, never went to 2.8. It started at 2.5 million and stayed there all year. They actually only raised $1,026,424. That counter is now missing from the To the Stars website. It does show 2,547 investors at $5 per share with a minimum of $200 of investment. At that minimum, some invested more for sure. It's only $509,400. And now we know the real number raised is only $1,026,000. So why show $2.5 million all year? I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that. I'm only stating the facts. Also, directly from the report, you get these following numbers. Current assets, cash. Now listen to everything that I am saying. I am quoting directly from the SEC filing. Current assets, cash, $129,534. Accounts receivable, $8,118. Inventory, $114,332. Other assets, $162,203. Total current assets, $414,187. Advertising expenses were $22,784 in 2017 and $158,217 for the 6 months ended June 30th, 2018. The report continues with the following. Furniture and fixtures, $48,137. Machinery and equipment, $160,758. Leasehold improvements, $372,537. Total property and equipment through June 30th, 2018, $581,432. Now, what about salaries? The only part on the financial statements where anything is relevant to this, it states general and administrative cost, $246,334. But there's a second number, sales and marketing, $594,628. I'm going to continue. Two very crucial numbers. Revenues for 2018. Revenues for 2018 are $369,510, with a gross profit for 2018 of just $133,602. Now, this does not make any sense to me. I don't understand much of this because I'm not an accountant, and I'll say it again before I'm done. But I'll read again the last couple of lines from Note 2. The company has incurred losses from operations that has an accumulated deficit at June 30th, 2018 of $37,432,000. These factors raise doubt about the company's ability to continue as a going concern, end quote. Again, I'm not an accountant, but TTSA is a public company. Hence, this filing with the SEC and posted on sec.gov, where anyone can check it out for review. There will be many talented eyes on this document through the days and weeks ahead. And maybe someone out there can make sense of it all, and let's all hope it's not as bad as it seems. But for me, my only opinion is this is nuts because it doesn't make any sense. I don't know where a $37 million debt comes from. And it just may be some fancy account speak for something to do with stock or borrowed money or rich people talk. I really don't have any idea. But one thing is for sure. The financial report is not what I expected to see. There are a lot of concerns about To the Stars Academy, Arts and Science, Inc., and I understand that. Today there was a metallurgy scientific report that was released. I'm still getting through that. There are questions about that too as well, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it, and I need to bring on some very talented guests that know about not only the materials that are tested, but how the testing is done. So you can expect that in the immediate days and weeks ahead. But going back to the show earlier this week, where we had John Greenwald on, where we had this singular Freedom of Information Act document that had the only mention of ATIP out there, and we got that and we presented that. There have been a list of questions that I have been talking about on this show for a very long time, and it's only about the obvious. My concern always, no matter who the guest is or what we are talking about, is the community. That's it. It is community first. And that's why this document today, this financial statement from To the Stars, was presented here tonight, because I don't know. It is news. I don't have an opinion. I'm not an accountant. I need everybody else to lay eyes on it. And this community, going back to anything that has been controversial over the years, has been able to figure it out on their own. There's too many smart people that are a part of this community. And it doesn't matter what your area of expertise is. It may be computers. It may be photo analysis. It may be history. It could be anything. It can be linguistics. Anything, right? And you guys are the best and the brightest, and you are able to go and look at stuff and figure it out very, very quickly. And that's what this show is about. And that's why I presented this tonight. And it is our last show of the week. We're going to head into the weekend, and Monday is going to roll around, and we'll be able to regroup and figure out what is actually going on. And that is what is most important here. You know, and I want to say one other thing really quick. I was sitting and discussing, it doesn't matter with who. I was sitting and discussing yesterday and today the situations that are going on all the way around us in every single segment of our community right now. And it seems like it's a little chaotic and a little rough. And it doesn't matter if we're discussing Egypt or lost history. It just doesn't matter. And the researchers that are involved there, or if it's ufology, and if it's to the stars, or if it's other whistleblowers, and if yesterday guy and the trademarking of disclosure, and you go all the way around from ghosts to Bigfoot, and you pick a researcher, pick a segment, and there is something going on right now. So look, it's okay. We have to look at it like this. First off, it's exciting, right? It's exciting. We have breaking news all the way around us. But the second point that I want to make very clear, so all of you can just kick back and relax, this community is a family. And if we don't have the ability and the fun of arguing and fighting and figuring stuff out amongst us, then there's no reason to do any of this. That's what is to be expected. It's just like Thanksgiving, where everything is just blowing up. You know what? But you wake up the next day and we fight another fight. That's it. And that's what's going on. So think about it. Okay? It's all good. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, somebody that I've respected for so many years is finally here on Fade to Black, and that is Dean Radin, PhD. So get ready. When we talk about those exciting subjects of quantum mechanics and quantum theory and the science and parallel worlds and what is going on at the atomic and subatomic level and how everything is connected and how we communicate and telepathy and all of these things, right? And remote viewing. This is what Dean has been talking about for decades. And science right now is right on the edge of proving all of these fantastic subjects that we've been talking about for all of these years. And tonight we're going to do that with Dean Radin. I'm very excited about that. So get ready. When I come back after this short break, we'll be joined by Dean Radin. And not only that, but I have asked Dean to allow me to discuss his career and his past, the things that brought me to Dean first. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to go through it all tonight from A to Z. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. It's all simple, and I'll be right back with tonight's guest, Dean Radin. Stay with me.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Times are changing. The circus of politics, healthcare's low standards and high prices, and let's not forget food quality. What to do? Arm yourself with Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. In a world of chemical imbalance and poor air and water quality, it's time you make a move. Log on to getthetea.com and stock up on organic non-GMO supplements. Don't forget the tea. Cleansing your body never felt so good. And we have a brand new tea called Takedown Tea, which helps support healthy glucose. All natural body support so you can be at your best, naturally. All you have to do is log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. We're not a fad that comes and goes. We are the real deal. Join us and armor up. Getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Changing America's health one tea bag at a time.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find Fast Start Diet on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code TALK to get 10% off your first box. And as a special bonus, Fast Start will include their #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. This is Jimmy Church. And whatever your diet plans are, do what I did. Go to faststartdiet.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Dean Radin. No Fader Night tonight, no open lines. It's just another great show. Now, tonight, we're going to cover everything. We're going to do a brief history of magic. We're going to talk about that. We're going to go back to ancient history all the way to a scientific fact today. We're going to review the scientific evidence for magic, a series of simple but effective magical techniques, and the vision of scientifically informed magic, explaining why magic will play a key role in the frontiers of science. Dean Radin, PhD, is the chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS. And before joining the research staff at IONS back in 2001, he had held appointments at AT&T Bell Labs. So did I. Oh, I got to talk to Dean about that. Princeton University, University of Edinburgh, and SRI International. He is the author or co-author of over 250 technical and popular articles, 36 book chapters, and 3 books including the award-winning The Conscious Universe, Entangled Minds, and the 2014 Silver Nautilus Book Award winner, Supernormal. His latest work is called, of course, Real Magic. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. That was released back in April of this year. His website is noetic.org. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Dean Radin. Dean, good evening, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jimmy. Thanks very much.
And, you get the first-time guest disclaimer, Dean, so we got to do that first. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, let's go. It's just you and I sitting on my couch and having a conversation as friends, and where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go. You ready to go?
Sure.
Now, you know what's funny, Dean? Over the years, where I have gone and listened to your interviews and your presentations, you are so relaxed. and I'm like, maybe tonight Dean is he's gonna bring it up, but you always stay calm, cool, and collected with these very scientific subjects. How do you maintain that self-control?
Well, I suppose it's just part of the way that I am.
See, you're doing it now.
No, but it's really true. I mean,
right.
of course, I'm quite passionate about the work that I do, but I don't know. I think it's not that different among scientists. Like if you're highly emotional as a scientist, you probably can't do your job very well.
Well, what about you when you're hanging out with your scientist buddies alone and nobody else is around? Do you guys jump up and down once in a while?
No.
That's a great answer. And that's what I expect, and that's what I've always seen in you. And let's do this first. Let's go back before ions, 2001. Let's go way back before start. Let's go back. And as a child, did you what attracted you to this? Did you have abilities? Was there something that triggered? Did you have an epiphany that led you here?
Actually, when I was a child, I don't recall any psychic experiences that I had, nor anyone in my family who ever even talked about the subject. I grew up in a non-religious family.
Right.
Religion was never a topic of discussion. So I think what sparked my interest was science fiction. I read all of the science fiction I could find in a library when I was in junior high school. And when I ran out of science fiction, I read fairy tales, and then I started reading mythology, and basically I read a lot. So the thing that struck me, even as a kid, was how strange it was that in most of these genre of books, from science fiction, fairy tales, and a whole lot, they took psychic phenomena, or at least special mental powers, for granted. So I always thought, well, this is strange, because if these stories felt completely outlandish, like it's ridiculous, then why do people gravitate to it? Because you see it in fiction everywhere. It's been around forever. And so I never forgot that I wonder if this stuff is real. And so you jump 20 to 30 years in the future, and you have tens of millions of fans of Harry Potter for exactly the same reason.
Right.
That these ideas resonate with people at some level. And so lots of people are curious, whether they've had any psychic experiences or not, as to whether these things might actually be true. So that's what attracted me.
And what about like Uri Geller, who did so much to bring this into popular culture, right? And that is a bona fide part of our society wanting to believe, and he's presenting it out there to the masses like that. Did he have any effect on you?
Well, I suppose, although the moment that anybody is a performer, then there's always some suspicion. Because I know a lot of mentalists. These are performers who can fake psychic effects. And I have a pretty large collection of mentalist tricks.
Sure.
So I know how most of them work. It's always possible to be fooled. But because most of the standard tricks are easy to spot, or at least easy to protect against, some of the things that Uri Geller did could probably be faked. So you never know. So this is one of the reasons why both when people tell me about anecdotes, things that happened to them, I listen, because a lot of times it's quite interesting. But you don't know what it is. You can't know. That's why I always default to go into the laboratory, because there you do have the possibility of actually knowing what happened. So I put a much more confidence on laboratory results than I do on people who perform amazing things.
And when you go into the laboratory, strangely enough, you can have an attitude maybe going in. Are you going in maybe as a skeptic, as a hardcore scientist, or are you maybe trying to actually debunk something?
Well, all science is you have to be skeptical as a scientist, otherwise you're not doing your job.
Right.
So to devise a properly controlled study, you have to be more skeptical than people who label themselves as skeptics. You have to think of every possible way that somebody could tear apart the protocol. And you know that people are going to attack the studies anyway, so you really do have to second guess every possible way of making sure the study is tight. And sometimes you'll run a study and you discover a flaw, or somebody else discovers a flaw, so you have to do it again. So there's lots of iteration to make sure that you got it right. And the distinction between proponent and skeptic is actually kind of a false equivalency. I've sometimes asked to go on a show where there'll be me and a so-called skeptic who will have a debate. And I've given up on those. I don't do those anymore.
Right.
And the reason is that we're not standing on the same ground. That somebody could debate by saying, well, I simply don't believe it. Well, that's not debatable anymore. You can only debate when there are actually data that you can talk about, and analysis of data and those things. But a lot of the people who are professional skeptics, they don't talk about data. They talk about belief. So that's not worth my time.
When you went to college, what was your focus there? Before Bell Labs and Princeton and so forth. What did you study in school?
Well, I originally thought that I would become a musician. So I started playing the violin when I was 5, and I played the next 20 years, probably practicing between an hour and 3 hours or 4 hours every day.
Wow.
So I was on a career track to be a concert violinist. And somewhere during college, I realized that it's really hard to be a musician. No one bothered to tell me that being a musician means you're an athlete. You're making your living with your body, essentially. And I've never been particularly strong. And you need to be strong to be a musician, especially professional.
That's right.
So I asked everyone I knew, if you're not going to be a musician, what else should you do to earn a living? Well, a lot of people said, well, go into engineering. Well, fortunately, I was also good in math and in science. So I went into electrical engineering because I like to make stuff. And that was fun. So that turned out to be well. And it was probably the correct choice that if you want to make a living, become an engineer if you can do it. And so I graduated in electrical engineering. I went on to get a master's in electrical engineering because at that point I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I switched into psychology and got my doctorate in experimental psychology, still not quite sure what I wanted to do.
What were you, when you went to Bell Labs, a double E or electrical engineer there?
No. When I graduated with my doctorate in psychology, at that point I learned that there actually is a discipline where it's very useful to have a combination of engineering and psychology, namely an engineering psychologist, otherwise known as a human factors psychologist.
Right.
So I realized, I guess I've been trained, unbeknownst to me, to be a specialist in human-computer interaction. So that's what I did when I was at Bell Labs. I worked on the human interface to the very complicated electronic and computer systems that at the time ran the Bell system.
Oh, really? Which labs were you at?
I was my home base was in Columbus, Ohio, but I spent a fair amount of time in Illinois and at the various labs locations in New Jersey.
I was at Bell Labs, Indianapolis.
Yes, I think I went there once. I went to most of the labs at least once, but mostly it was Naperville and Homedale. Those two.
Yeah, the important ones. We were we were Bell Labs Indianapolis. It was exciting, but it was small compared to what was going on in New Jersey and other locations. And my gig there, I was an artist, and I put numbers on keypads for designs. Mm-hmm. That was my gig. I worked in a photo lab. And generated graphics, but it was fun, and I learned the ins and outs of a keypad design. That's for sure. So
somebody has to do it.
Somebody's got to do it. Yes.
One of the things you learn in the human factors business is that everything about machinery that people interact with, somebody at some point is making a design decision. And so to this day, I'll be riding a new car or doing something with some kind of technology and can really appreciate when you see a piece of technology that is well designed, because lots of it is not well designed. The other day I was riding a rental car and thinking, well, I can't find how to open the gas compartment on this car. There's nothing that tells me how to do that. So at the gas station, I had to sit and read the manual for 30 minutes to figure out, how do I open the gas container on the side of the car? Well, that should not be the case. It should be obvious. And that means that somebody failed in the design.
Yeah, it's exactly the appreciation that I went after I had left Bell Labs, and to this day, I am always looking at everything with that same exact set of eyes. And it's a constant thing that I can't get away from. Every single element of everything around you was designed by somebody. It didn't fall out of the sky. Right. It's really that simple. Yep. So I'm sure that the psychology part of your education had a lot to do with the way that you look at things so scientifically today, because the engineering degree coupled with all of this, it's either making things very easy for you, or you can't help yourself but jump into heavy research on whatever the subject may be, whether it's telekinesis or ESP or telepathy.
Well, I think to be effective at parapsychological research, which is what I've focused on now for almost 40 years, it's very useful to have a background that has some engineering in it, so you are able to deal with technical equipment and maybe build equipment if you need to. The psychology is very important because, among other things, you learn how easy it is to fool people and to fool yourself.
Right.
And at the same time, you learn about experimental protocols and statistics and how to do experiments, how to interact with people. So all of my background seemed to come together once I realized that, first of all, there was a discipline called parapsychology, but more importantly, that I could actually make a living doing this kind of research.
And now parapsychology, just by definition, depending on who you're talking to, it's either negative, crazy, tinfoil hat stuff, or it's something that's very exciting and cutting edge. But that's the problem that we have here. Just the word itself, parapsychology, causes people to think in their own way what you're talking about.
Exactly. And so this year and next year, I'm the president of the Parapsychological Association. So the PA, as we call it, is an elected member of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the biggest mainstream scientific organization in the world. And we were elected by the council of the AAAS back in 1969 because what we do is science. We use the same tools and techniques of science as every other discipline, except we apply them to psychic phenomena. And so when the council made their choice, they said, well, it's true that the topic is certainly controversial, but we have nothing bad to say about the application of science to study those kinds of phenomena. That's why we're a member of the AAAS. On the other hand, a couple months ago, I gave the presidential address, which we do at our annual conventions. And the very first thing I opened up with is why we need to change the name. And I was able to show that by, if you go to Google Image and you type in parapsychology, what you come up with is basically Ghostbusters.
Right.
So that is the image that the word has become, and that is not serving us well. So what we should be called is something like the Psychophysics Association, because parapsychology is really about the relationship between the psyche, the mind, and physics. It's the space in between psyche and physics. So that's what we study. Unfortunately, psychophysics is already the name of a discipline, and so we can't use that. So coming up with a better name there's a lot of internal debate about what we should use and whether we should change it. So I don't know that we ever will.
Yeah, you should be able to call it just magic, right? That's what you should be able to do, and you can't do that either.
No, magic is a placeholder for something is happening, but we don't know what to call it yet. That's what that word has always meant, basically.
Sounds like parapsychology to me.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, it does. And let's go right there before we head towards the break, because today, and I don't want to make this complex or long, but when I hear you talk about the activity that is going on at the atomic level and the changes that happen there, as subtle as they may be, but when this change happens, however it is happening, those subtle changes are what we would refer to on so many different levels, whether it's magic or telepathy or whatever, telekinesis, for instance. But this has been going on for thousands and thousands of years, and they have recognized that. And so take us back a few thousand years where they knew then what we're figuring out now scientifically.
Okay, so before the break, we have 10 minutes to cover 10,000 years.
Yes, exactly.
Actually, it's more like 50,000 years. But okay, so we can do that.
Right.
So we start back at shamanism. So roughly 50,000, maybe even 100,000 years ago, the very first humans that lived in tribes. Well, the shamans were people who were selected because of their special gifts, primarily their gifts about prophecy. They were able to forecast if there was danger ahead. Also for their gifts of clairvoyance, where they're able to tell where the animals would be tomorrow for the hunt, and for their healing ability. So the shamans were the first psychics, basically, but there were more than that. There were warriors, the wise men, healers, and so on. So we can jump from shamanism, which is still practiced around the world today in many places, but we can jump from there to perhaps one of the first organized magical systems or esoteric systems, which was Pythagoras, and the Greek philosopher. He had a mystery school where he talked about his alternative view of reality. And then we go to Plato about 500 years later. His ideas were called Neoplatonism. And then we find ideas like Gnosticism, the Kabbalah, Hermeticism. These were all ancient ideas going back 2,000 to 5,000 years ago, where it was a cosmology in the sense that it was a way for people to describe the nature of reality and how they fit into the cosmos. So from there, from Hermeticism, we jump to the Knights Templar in the medieval times. The Knights Templar were a little bit unusual back then because most of the world was extremely tribal and people didn't move around very much. But the Knights Templar did. So they were able to go to many different societies, mostly around Europe. And they collected ideas. And among the ideas that they collected were the esoteric ideas, namely Hermeticism, Kabbalah, Gnosticism, and so on. From there, we can jump a couple hundred years to the Freemasons, who were like a modern version of the Knights Templar, and that they made the churches. So they had secrets about how to do masonry to make these amazing Gothic cathedrals, because they didn't have the equipment we have today, and they were able to do amazing work. So the Freemasons also collected esoteric lore. The next big advancement was the Rosicrucians. And for the first time, somebody who wanted to learn about the esoteric traditions were able to actually go and join the Rosicrucians and learn it. This is like a radical new thing where anybody could go and learn about this stuff, because prior to that, it was all word of mouth or an oral tradition.
Right.
So after the Rosicrucians, we have things like Theosophy, the Order of the Golden Dawn, which is a resurrection of ancient magical practices, chaos magic, and Aleister Crowley in the 1970s and before that. We have Mesmer in France, Christian Science and New Thought religions in the United States. So all through this, from shamanism all the way up to Harry Potter, we have a continual thread called the esoteric traditions. It's called esoteric because it meant it was sub rosa. It was suppressed so that it was not what people were generally taught. And it was suppressed primarily initially by the church, mostly the Roman Catholic Church, which suppressed it not because there was disbelief about these ideas, but because it was a challenge to the church's authority. And so that's where the Inquisition was a police force, which basically was created to enforce the church's authority. And in the process, anybody who didn't accept the church doctrine, like Gnosticism was explicitly against the church. They hated the church, but they were Christians. They followed a different idea. So all of these ideas from shamanism up almost to Harry Potter have always been considered esoteric as compared to exoteric, which is above the surface. It's like the everyday world, things that people are taught. Esoteric, unfortunately, is often associated with the word occult, which has a negative connotation. And all that occult means is hidden, just like esoteric means also hidden. It's just a long, long thread of knowledge and wisdom that has been pushed away. So now that we have the internet, what used to be an extremely secret set of ideas, you could find any of those books and manuscripts and ideas in a matter of 10 seconds by going to the right website. So it's not really esoteric traditions anymore. They're all easily available, but you have to know where to look, and then you can find it.
The history of all of this, the fascinating thing for me, Dean, is that society and individuals could see the practice and see something going on and know that there's something else to the world, and that was an obvious thing. But they considered it magic, or maybe even something else crazier. But it's actually science that is going on here. Why can't we get, I know we're working on it today, but why can't we get science and the other fringe part of this to overlap so we can just start knocking these dominoes down and showing everybody that there's some really beautiful things going on out there?
Well, and that is exactly the segue into my book. Because, yes, so I can tell you must have read some of it, because that, of course, is the entire theme of my book, Real Magic. How do we connect these ancient traditions with modern science? And I see, at least the reason why I wrote the book is there is a very, very clear connection.
Let's take a break right here, and when we come back, I want to discuss Stargate. But there's a lot of science that is involved there too, as well, and we'll do that, and we'll just work our way right up to Real Magic. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Dean Radin, PhD. That's right, IONS, the Chief Scientific Officer for Noetic, and we'll do all of that when we come back. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm Katie and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're of the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
Reclaim your active lifestyle with Angioprim. Angioprim is the original liquid oral chelation supplement. Chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in your veins and arteries that can cause blockages. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. Find out more. Go to angioprim.com. Talk to a trained consultant by calling Angioprim toll-free 877-882-7221.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official FADERNIGHT by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hey, it's Grace. Can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only use night vision goggles from Bearing Optics. You can see your very own green chrome balls today by clicking on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Dean Radin, Chief Scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS. And now, this is what I want to do, Dean. Stargate comes up on this show probably 2 or 3 times a week, not only from guests, but from the audience. They always want to hear about it. And I don't know if the movie has something to do with that, too, as well. It's kind of funny. But what was the Stargate project?
Well, Stargate was one of the code words for a program that lasted for about 20 years. When I was on it, it was actually called Grill Flame at the time. Stargate was the last code word. So it was the government's use of psychic espionage, primarily. It was they had reasons to believe that there were expert psychics who could see and describe things that were happening on the other side of the planet, including things that had not occurred yet, so precognitively, and also things that were in buildings where it was difficult or even impossible to get human intelligence inside the building. So it was, in a sense, a branch of the intelligence gathering world.
And what years were you involved?
I was at Bell Labs at the time, and I took a leave of absence for 1 year. So I was there for the calendar year 1985.
1985, and at that point, what was your involvement? Did you have talents that you were exploiting, or were you there for the science part?
I was a visiting scientist for the whole year. I met Ingo Swann and Joe McMonagle and many others at the time. My role was partially to help with threat assessment, and this is what a lot of intelligence is about. That you hear something about an adversary who has developed something, and you want to know whether or not it's actually a threat to national security. So we got documents that had been spirited out of the Soviet Union at the time, or what we used to call Red China. We would read the documents. Occasionally we would talk to somebody who was defecting to the United States and try to assess whether or not things that were psychic that were being talked about in these documents, whether they were credible or not. And in some cases, we would try to replicate things that we had read about. So that was a big part of what I did. I also ran a couple of experiments, and I used part of my time there to be the program chairman of one of the meetings of the Parapsychological Association.
That sounds like the most exciting thing one could do. I mean, how exciting was it to be involved, even though it was just for a short year? How exciting was it?
It was mind-boggling.
Right.
It really was. One of the strangest aspects of the whole thing is that at the time this was a TS-SCI program. It's above top secret. It's so-called carve-out program. So it's in the deep black. Nobody's allowed to know about it. Even if you have top secret clearance, you can't know about it until you're read in on the project. So you get this, you see this book and you sign it along with, you can see everybody else who signed it. And this program was probably known by perhaps 100 people, maybe 120 in the United States. For a long time, even the code words were classified. You couldn't say anything about this. So we'd go into work. This was at SRI, and we'd be doing all kinds of interesting psychic things. And when you leave work, not only could you not talk about it, but the prevailing opinion, and this is still true somewhat today, but the prevailing opinion among scientists at the time was this psychic stuff is nonsense. It couldn't possibly be true. So outside the building, that's the attitude you had to adopt. Inside the building, we were doing it. So this didn't feel very comfortable to me after a while, that you needed to become kind of a professional schizophrenic. Inside the building, you're doing amazing futuristic psychic things. Outside the building, it's all nonsense. So that just never set very well with me.
No, I can only imagine. And at that time, who was funding the program? These are questions for myself. I've got the opportunity to ask. Was it the CIA? Was it an agency, or was it the Army?
It was the tail end of the DIA and the beginning of the Army.
Wow, how exciting! I mean, seriously. I mean, that's like a movie. Yeah. And when you're hanging out, was it Ingo and Joe? Were there members of the DIA that were monitoring you, or were you guys able to? I mean, tell me what that was like. Was it more free form, or were you given assignments?
No, it was. We had tasks. I mean, some of them were operational tasks. What I mean by that is that some client, and this is every intelligence agency you've ever heard of, and many that you have not, they would repeatedly ask for information about some project they were working on. One example is the Joint Task Force, which is a combination of many military and intelligence agencies who are together working on something. So one of the most frequent requests came from the Joint Task Force, and they were working on drug interdiction. So they knew that somebody was going to enter the country, probably by a boat. They had no idea when or where. They would ask us, or they would ask the Army equivalent. The Army group was doing only operational missions. We would occasionally do operational missions, but mostly we were doing science. So occasionally I would see the operation missions underway, and we would identify through psychic means where we expected a boat to enter U.S. waters, and it was successful enough that the Joint Task Force came back over 100 times to ask for additional information. So different agencies would use this for different reasons, and in all cases, they would never rely only on what we said. They would use multiple sources of information from lots of different approaches, and then ours would be used as a part of the jigsaw puzzle that they were putting together. But we knew that in many cases, the information we were providing allowed them to fill in the rest of the jigsaw puzzle that otherwise they would not have been able to do.
When you first got to SRI, I'm sure you had a certain mindset and were trying to understand these things and look at it. But after a year there and you left, what did you take with you? What did you learn?
Well, the main thing that I learned was I really, really want to spend my career doing this. That's what I learned. Because before that, I had already been doing experiments at Bell Labs. And in fact, that was a connection. The reason I went to SRI is because I was doing some experiments at Bell Labs. I got permission to talk about them at conferences, and somebody at a conference then recruited me for the SRI program. At that time, there were rumors that the government was doing something, but no one actually knew what was going on. So, of course, when I got the invitation to join this program, it's like you can't say no to that if you have any interest in it at all.
Right.
And having seen it then from the inside, and especially seeing people like Ingo and Joe McMonagle, who are really good at what they were able to do, and it had nothing. It was so opposite from the stereotyped vision that people have of Madame's Zodiac. I mean, it wasn't like that at all.
Right.
Except these were completely normal people that had just astounding skills. How could you walk away from that? Well, I found I couldn't. I really wanted to figure out a way of continuing to do it, but not doing it in a classified environment. There's so many restrictions about what you can do and say in those environments that it felt too constraining to me.
Well, and I imagine that at some point we all want to wear the "I want to believe" shirt, right? And that's where you had to have gone through that phase. Was it at SRI where you just at one point went, holy crap, this is real? I mean, this is real.
Yeah, the holy crap moment occurred when I got the full briefing on the project. It took a while to get all of the various clearances for the level of classification for this project, but I finally got them. And then Hal Puthoff was the head of the program at the time, and he gave me the briefing. So this is the briefing that's given to members of Congress and so on who need to know about the program. And much of that briefing now is available through books because most of the project has been declassified. But at the time, nobody had any idea how accurate remote viewing could be. And so I see one case after the other and real operational missions showing how good it could actually be with talented people. And it's mind-boggling. I mean, it gives you vertigo when you first encounter it.
I can only imagine. Now, what about your oaths and security clearances and probably an NDA that was, extended? How much of it could you talk about when you exited the program, or you couldn't discuss it at all?
No, when I left the program, I couldn't talk about anything. I mean, I went back to Bell Labs.
Right.
I returned after the leave of absence, and all I could tell people was I was working at SRI. I couldn't even tell them on what.
And how long until you were, given your wings and freedom to discuss things?
Actually, not until 1995.
That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When the program was declassified, then I was freer to talk about what was going on.
And what happened next? You go back to Bell Labs, but in the parapsychological career of yours, what happened next?
Well, when I went back to Bell Labs, I was determined to figure out a way of spending my time doing this kind of research.
Right.
And within about 4 months, I was invited to go to Princeton to work alongside the Pear Lab, the group in the engineering building, or the engineering college within Princeton, with Bob John and Brenda Dunn. And they had at that time just begun to start the Pear Lab, the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab. That's not quite true. They had been already going for maybe 5 years by that point. And I was brought in as part of a large grant that they got to be in the psychology department. That's where my appointment was. And I was there to create multidisciplinary programs that would connect the Pear Lab with the psychology department, with social psychology and philosophy and computer graphics and a few other areas on campus. But realistically, I spent almost all of my time doing cyber search because why not? That's what I was interested in.
Was it at Princeton where you started to hone your skills with controlled experiments?
No, I was already doing that at Bell Labs. So Princeton was a very nice place to stay and to work, because I was able to see what was going on in the Pear Lab firsthand. And I worked pretty closely with Roger Nelson, who was another psychologist in the Pear Lab for over 20 years.
How do you demonstrate the power of the mind and its control over something that is animate? How do you do that, not only for your fellow scientists and for yourself, but for somebody that is completely new to this?
Well, the experiments are pretty straightforward. Most experiments involving mind-matter interaction involve some sort of a target system that you're able to monitor carefully. And it's everything from water as a target to bacteria to cell cultures to small animal behavior, large animal behavior, human behavior, electronic circuits, the toss of dice, on and on and on. All kinds of physical targets have been used, some living and some non-living targets. And the protocols in most cases are approximately the same, that you give somebody instructions to try to influence the target, whether it's the roll of a die or the output of a random number generator, or human behavior at a distance, or even human physiology at a distance. And then you have periods where you withdraw your intention. So you're trying to intend a change, and now you're stopping that, and you go back and forth many times. And then you look at the recording of the physical system, and you see whether or not the behavior in the system was corresponding to the mental instructions that the person was giving. So that's how you do it. So it's always a comparison between an intentional control system or an intentional control instructions and a withdrawal of that intention.
Are these repetitive in that, you're mentioning the roll of the dice or effects on water or, germs or bacteria? Are we talking about thousands? How many times do you have to establish a pattern?
Well, the effects that we see in virtually all of these systems is very, very small. So in a single session where an individual is asked to do something, it might only take a half an hour. And over the course of a half an hour, maybe 40 alternations of now concentrate and now relax. So in a given session, you can't ask somebody to spend a long, long time trying to influence something, because you get tired very quickly, right, and your mind begins to wander. So you do many, many sessions with many, many people, and then you use statistics to see whether or not the system is behaving according to the protocol.
I want to ask you probably a strange question, but I think you'll enjoy it. I've watched all of those old black and white films of the Russian experiments, right? And you know what I'm talking about, the movement of objects and stuff.
Yep.
Real or fake?
Some of it was probably real. It's not necessarily the case that it was psychic, though. Like, for example, in some cases where you see somebody straining like crazy, like their head's going to pop off, their hands are quite close to the target that they're trying to influence.
That's right.
And there are electrostatic effects. There's heat convection effects. There's all kinds of mundane, subtle, but real physical effects that happen when you bring your hands close to something. Electrostatic, as I said. So you don't know. It's only when you do a protocol where you're either far distant from the target, so that there's no ordinary way that you can interact with the system, or you're working with a system that is so well controlled. Like you could have your hands near it, but perhaps the target's in a vacuum.
Right.
In which case, then there can't be heat convection. It can't be lots of things, but you can still be close to it. And most of the experiments that I do, I don't try to shield the system so much that you can still be close, because it's really tough to do that. Like the moment you get near something, all kinds of things are possible. So about the closest that anybody can get in any of our experiments is about 2 meters. And oftentimes we'll do it over the internet so people can be kilometers away.
Right. Yeah, because I would watch those films. I don't want to spend any more time on this, but some of it could be heat. Some of it could be even wind. I mean, their arms are waving, right, crazily. Some of the stuff, though, is under glass, and it's a bit different. And once I determined, okay, all right, this is just whatever. But then I would watch enough. I was like, well, wait a minute. There's something going on here, and I'm not sure. Do you think the Russians? Well, first off, do they still research this like they were so aggressively in the 50s and 60s? But do you think that they were really close to getting something perfected?
Well, the Russians had a much bigger program at the same time that we did.
Right.
During the whole Stargate 20 years, the Russians had a program like 10 times 10 in terms of the number of people and the amount of money. From what we know today, they weren't really ahead of us in any way. They did spend a lot more time on psychokinetic effects. But as best as I can tell, they did not make any breakthroughs and went beyond anything that we know.
Let's go through some quick definitions before the bottom of the hour, because we're really going to get into the book and magic and science when we come back. And let's go through this. The basics are very simple, but we're going to be discussing these like ESP, telepathy, telekinesis, remote viewing, precog. Let's start with ESP. What's your definition of ESP?
Well, it stands for extrasensory perception, and it was a general term used for being able to perceive some sort of target that was shielded by distance or time. So that was ESP.
Telepathy, even though we discuss it a lot, I think it's also misunderstood. What's your definition?
Telepathy meant feeling at a distance. The pathy part is about feelings. So sometimes people think of it as mind reading or thought reading, and it's not that really. It's more about gaining an empathic sense, a feeling sense of somebody at a distance.
Because, you know, we hear it all the time. How'd you communicate with E.T.? Well, I use mental telepathy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Telekinesis?
Telekinesis is a popular term for what we would call, within the discipline, we call it psychokinesis, or PK. It's the same thing. It basically means that it's a mind-matter direct interaction, the mind causing something to happen at a distance.
Where today, I think the pop culture way of looking at telekinesis is you're knocking an object off a table or starting a fire.
Right. So that we would call macro PK, the macroscopic effect, meaning that you could see it with the naked eye. There are lots of anecdotes of people who claim that they can do that. In Real Magic, I have a chapter devoted to these macro PK events, but they are extremely rare. It is so rare that I have yet to find anybody who can do these effects on demand. To do it spontaneously, there are all kinds of weird stuff that happens spontaneously, But to do it on demand in the lab under controlled conditions, extremely rare.
Before we move on, have you, what you're saying, spontaneously, you're in the lab, have you seen somebody knock books off a shelf or knock a chair over?
We once had somebody in the lab doing an experiment, and she got kind of angry because she wasn't getting a good result. So she swore at the equipment, and at that very moment, all of the power was knocked out in the county where I live. So
what?
Yeah. So, I mean, my experience of it was that all the lights went out in the lab. And then we started checking, and we said, oh, it went out in the whole campus. Oops, it went out in the whole town. It went out actually in our entire county.
Wait a minute. Somebody told me this story. Who were you in the lab with? Was it Russell?
No, it's a lady I know who lives in a nearby town who's one of those natural psychic types. But also has been initiated as both a Siberian shaman and as a Mongolian shaman. The only woman that we know of that is actually initiated in both of those traditions, but she's an American lady.
Incredible. Incredible. Yeah. Now, okay, so you're saying that you felt that these two incidents were connected.
Well, that's what I mean by spontaneous. So this was a correlation in time where she basically exclaimed that she was really angry and wanted to change the system. And so at the moment that she said that, all of the lights went out, all the power went out for a space of about, 40 square miles.
Right.
So did she do that or not? Well, that's the problem, you see. It wasn't part of the control.
Right.
And even for myself once at a so-called spoon bending party, I bent the bowl of a big soup spoon in half. And I know I didn't use force because I remember looking at my fingers thinking, how in the world did I do that? And there's no indentation on my fingers, but somehow I bent the bowl of a spoon in half. Well, you can't do that, but I did it.
And you couldn't repeat it?
No, I don't know what I did, so I don't know how to repeat it.
You should have asked, okay, that was good. That was 40 square miles. Let's do San Jose next.
Yeah, so this is, it's important in discussing these macro effects because they're so big and yet not under your control that you actually become scared. I was scared after I figured out I've just bent metal in a way that's impossible. And I was on the airplane going home, still trying to do it with a different spoon. And I really got scared when I realized that I don't know how I did it and I don't know the extent. So maybe I'll succeed by having the wings of the airplane drop off.
We've got 1 minute left. Let's do remote viewing and precognition. Give me the two definitions.
Remote viewing is a modern term for clairvoyance, meaning perception through space or time. That's all it is. Precognition is perception through time.
And is one different from the other, or is it like square and a rectangle situation?
Yeah, they're euphemisms.
Right.
That's all. There's synonymous and euphemisms. The only difference with remote viewing is that it implies a particular training method to get there. But the underlying phenomenon is clairvoyance. Clairvoyance includes precognition.
Exactly. Let's take a break right here. Do you consider yourself a good remote viewer?
Not as talented as many that I've met.
Yeah, I so want to learn. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Dean Radin. We're going to pick up where we left off. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Teppy. Do you want to be an official FADERNIGHT? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black questions. I've got a few lined up here for Dean, actually, too, as well. And thank you, everybody, for going nuts on Twitter tonight. Dean, what's your Twitter handle?
That's a good question.
You were supposed to know I was going to ask that question.
Yeah, but I can't know everything all at once. I suppose it's probably Dean Radin.
Okay, there you go. And I think we have it up there on Twitter, and you can follow Dean at Dean Radin. Now, we're going to pick up where we left off. We were working on definitions, and now we're going to discuss real magic. What's the definition of real magic?
So the real magic is a way of talking about magic which is not Harry Potter and not Harry Houdini, because those are the other two types of magic. Those are both fictional magic, or fake magic. So I wanted to talk about the real magic, the real stuff. And we earlier were talking about everything from shamanism to Christian Science and New Thought. It's somewhere between 10 and 50,000 year history of the esoteric ideas. Well, there are many, many scholars who've written hundreds of thousands of books about, and in fact, there are even academic societies that study these traditions. But I was interested not so much in the nuances between, let's say, Neoplatonism and Gnosticism. There are specialists in those kinds of comparisons. I was interested in what's the common thread throughout all of the esoteric traditions. And this is sometimes called the perennial philosophy, which is the name of a book written by Aldous Huxley. And the perennial philosophy makes it very clear what this esoteric cosmology is all about. It's basically 3 words. Consciousness is fundamental. That's what the esoteric traditions are all about. So consciousness is fundamental is completely opposite from what is the prevailing scientific worldview. And this is one of the reasons why, from a mainstream scientific perspective, which is how most people are trained today, that things like psychic phenomena and remote viewing, the whole domain of these experiences are considered somewhere between ridiculous and impossible, because it doesn't fit the worldview that we're taught. But it does fit the esoteric worldview, because if consciousness is fundamental, it means that this internal sense of awareness that we have, our experiences, that seems to be most of the time related to our brain, or at least inside our head somewhere, from a scientific perspective, we have no idea how that happens. And this is one of the points in the book, that science, this is one of the major outstanding issues in science, is how to account for the fact that we are aware. In fact, it's such a strange question to even ask people, why, what do you think your awareness is? I remember way back when I was going to Princeton, I mentioned to an uncle that was going to Princeton, and he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm studying consciousness. It took him a long time to figure out that that's a thing that you can study, right? You're studying the nature of awareness itself. Up until fairly recently with the neurosciences, the only way we could do that was by introspection. It's like meditation. You introspect and you begin to learn about the nature of consciousness that way. But from a scientific perspective, the only way that we've had to study consciousness is by studying the brain. And that's the way that most neuroscientists today think about it. They think that awareness is the brain. But all of the psychic phenomena suggest that that is not the case. That's another reason why psychic phenomena are considered to be so controversial from a scientific perspective, because they don't fit. So the esoteric idea, which is basically a set of philosophies, we're living within a set of assumptions all the time. Real Magic is actually a book about philosophy. But my editor said, you cannot put the word philosophy in a book that you expect more than 3 people to read. So, okay, well, it's about the philosophy of magic, which is really about our assumptions. Well, what do we think the world is actually made of? So you have 10 or 20,000 years of people who pretty much agreed that the world is made up out of consciousness. It's literally made out of awareness itself. So Real Magic then fits in with this idea, because if awareness is the real bottom, it's like the bottom of everything, not matter and energy, but consciousness itself, then suddenly awareness is primary over the physical world. And awareness being primary means that it's not in the physical world. The physical world is emerging out of awareness itself. That's what all the esoteric religions say. It's what all the mystics say, ancient mystics and modern mystics. They all say the same thing.
And what about, let me jump in real quick. What about Hermeticism and alchemy too as well?
It's all part of the same tradition.
It is.
Yes. So you do the synthesis and saying, well, okay, it's all about consciousness. But you look then at the practices of these esoteric traditions, it falls into 3 classes. And so these are things that people do based on this cosmology. So the analogy I make is that today's technology is to science as magical practices are to the esoteric traditions. So the magical practices is a technology of consciousness. So the three classes are divination. Divination means perception through time and space. It's associated with crystal balls, with doing tarot cards, with the I Ching, so on. The next practice is manifestation, or sometimes called power of will, which is psychokinesis. It's mind-matter interaction. The third category is called theurgy, which is all about communicating with disembodied spirits or entities of some type. So that's basically it. Those are the three types of practices that we call magic, real magic, and they're all based on this esoteric idea that everything is fundamentally made out of consciousness.
And how do you, which is what is discussed in the book, of course, but how do you tackle presenting scientific evidence for all three? And one other question, and let's tackle two. Are you able to see movement at the atomic or subatomic level with microscopes of the effects? Because you mentioned bacteria earlier too as well. I find that fascinating. Mm-hmm. Where you are able to show movement, like maybe reversing the orbit of an electron or some crazy thing. Are you able to present that scientifically too as well? That would be almost the holy grail.
Yeah. So the smallest system that's been systematically looked at is photons. So photons are pretty small. It's of course a packet of electromagnetic energy. And yeah, there are experiments that show that photon behavior can be changed. So that would fall into a force of will or manifestation because it has to do with the power of intention. So how do you demonstrate that something like divination, this magical practice, exists? Well, as you just heard, divination is all about perception through space and time. Well, that sounds a lot like clairvoyance because that's exactly what clairvoyance is.
Right.
Precognition is perception through time. Clairvoyance is sometimes thought of as perception through space. So this is where my inspiration came from when I've been studying clairvoyance and these other psychic abilities. And after looking at this history of the esoteric ideas, I realized that what parapsychologists have been doing for about 150 years is very explicitly studying magical practices. So we study precognition, well, that's divination. We study psychokinesis, that's what a magician would call manifestation. We study mediumship or near-death experience, that's what a magician would call theurgy. So we're using modern, controlled scientific methods to study these ancient magical practices. And when you do that, you find that, sure enough, some of these magical practices are actually real, as best as we can tell using scientific methods.
And so let's go to psychokinesis, for instance. What type of experiment have you set up to present this?
So I'll just give one example, which I talk about in the book. And this is with a colleague in Taiwan, where we wanted to see whether intentionally affected water would make plants grow differently. So there's a Buddhist temple in Taiwan. We asked the 3 senior monks there to intentionally affect water so that the water would be used to hydrate seeds, and then the seeds would grow plants. And then there was an identical batch of water that was not intentionally affected. So in order to do this in a proper way, after the water is affected and we have control water, from that point on, everything is double blind. So the person who is treating the seeds and measuring the plants and so on, they have no idea which batch of water they're dealing with, but they use both batches in growing these plants. And then later the analyst gets the data and they don't know which is which either, and they analyze it and get some kind of result.
Well, before we get to the results, how are they affecting it? You know, what are they doing? Are they sitting and looking at a jar of water? And how is that happening?
There are bottles of water in front of them. They're given instructions to intentionally bless the water so that plants that are grown with the water would grow better, would show more vigor and better growth.
Right.
And in order to prevent the other bottles of water, which are in the same building, from accidentally being infected by the blessing,
exactly,
they were asked to do a secondary blessing, which was to make sure that the control water did not get the blessing, like an anti-blessing on the control water, so they'd keep it like normal water.
An anti-blessing, right?
Yeah, because we don't know we don't know the extent to which these things work.
Well, the anti-blessing is just as strong as the blessing.
Well,
right?
We didn't say that to make it like literally anti-blessing. It was more like to shield that water against the blessing.
Sure.
So it wouldn't be affected.
This is exciting. Okay, so what happened?
So the plants were grown by somebody who basically that's their job. They just grow these plants all the time. And this was by a plant biologist. So the technician, that's all they do is grow these kinds of seeds. And so we ended up doing 4 experiments, slightly different conditions with each one, and also different kinds of seeds. The seed that we're using is called Arabidopsis thaliana, and we chose it because this is a plant that's used in a lot of biological experiments because its genome is known, the complete genome, and it has like a lot of living systems. We're not that different from a banana, for example, from our genetics. And this Arabidopsis thaliana seed also has lots and lots of genes in its genome, which are analogs to human genes. So you can study disease in genetics by looking at different kinds of plants, what the genetic effects in the plants, and you know that it would be similar in humans. So that's why the plant is used a lot in medical research. So we used a mutation of this kind of plant. We used what's called the wild type, which is the plant that you'd find out in the world, but a mutation which has more cryptochrome. It's a protein in the plant than the wild type. So why cryptochrome? Cryptochrome it's called a flavoprotein. It's the protein inside a plant that is sensitive to blue light, and in many plants, it's the protein that absorbs energy and causes the plant to point itself towards the sun over the day. So the plant will kind of move as the sun moves because it's pulling in energy. Well, it turns out that all living systems, including humans, have cryptochrome. And cryptochrome is very interesting because it is thought to have quantum properties. In fact, in birds, it is found in the retina of the birds. And many birds, especially ones that navigate long distances, seem to do so by actually seeing the Earth's lines of magnetic force. They can see it because the cryptochrome is sensitive all the way down to the Earth's magnetic field. So, and because of a quantum property. So what we're doing then is using the plant as a proxy for a quantum system, a living quantum system. And there are now a number of things like photosynthesis and a few other aspects of living systems which are thought to operate in quantum ways. So we're able to use a macroscopic object, namely a plant that's around 3 inches tall, but is saturated with this particular kind of protein, which is operating at the quantum scale. And we think that there might be a relationship between consciousness and quantum phenomena, and so this was a convenient way to do it.
Sure.
So we have the treated, the blessed water, and the unblessed water. They're used to hydrate the seeds grow. And one of the measures we're interested in is called the hypocotyl. This is the distance between the top of the seed and the bottom of where the first leaves show up. It's like the stem of the seed. So a really strong, healthy seed will have a short, fat hypocotyl. And that means that it's going to stand up strong. It's not wasting too much energy by making a very long stem. Because if you plant the seed upside down, for example, it starts going towards the dirt, and it has to turn around. So it takes a lot more energy to do that. You end up with a much longer hypocotyl. Or if there's not enough light, it has to stretch to find some light. So we're looking for short, fat hypocotyls in the blessed seeds and something else in the non-blessed seeds. And that's what we found. We ended up doing 4 experiments. Each experiment was replicated 3 times. And overall, there was no question at all that the blessed seeds grew much better than the unblessed seeds.
Now, how could you, because our bodies are what, 90-95% water?
Well, for babies, but for adults, more like 75%.
Okay, 75. It's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Right? How could we use that to affect us?
Well, if you are drinking blessed water with the right kind of blessing, then presumably it would help you in terms of your health.
And what about blessing the water that is already inside of us?
Well, that too. In fact, this is one of the ways that it is thought that psychic healing might work, that it is changing the nature of the water inside of you.
I mean, I find that exciting. I've often thought about that. You know, if we can affect water, and here our bodies are, 75% water, for instance, well, then we could definitely change our moods. We could do a lot of things.
You could do a lot of things, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we use the plants, again, kind of as an analog for human health, just simply to see whether it would do anything. Well, so we have pretty good evidence that it'll do something. It does something big. So, and of course, in this case, it's macroscopic. We're taking a seed and growing the seed and seeing an effect which you can see with your naked eye. But the underlying effect, we think, is really, really subtle. It's a tiny little effect, but it just is amplified by the growth of the seed itself.
Now, so you did 4 experiments, repeated it 3 times. Where were you at for success? 100%, 90%?
Oh, well, we look at it in terms of the overall probability of the difference between the treated and non-treated seeds. And it's related to, you get an average length of the hypocotyl in one case for the blessed ones, and for the non-blessed ones, I forget exactly what the difference was in absolute terms, but from a probabilistic perspective, it was trillions to 1 against chance. So there's basically no question that the seeds grew in a different way.
Now, what about when we're dealing with, the mind, or trying to sense or communicate with somebody, over great distances? How do you set up that type of experiment and, take that into hardcore science?
You mean for a telepathy experiment?
Yes.
So the classic form of telepathy experiment is called the Ganzfeld experiment. Ganzfeld is a German word meaning whole field. And it actually, the way it manifests is an unpatterned sensory stimulus. So that sounds very fancy, but all it really means is you sit in a comfy chair, you have a half of a ping pong ball put over each eye, it's taped down, you keep your eyes open, and then we shine a red light in your face. So with your eyes open, anywhere you look, you only see a kind of a pink color. And then we put headphones on that are playing white noise. So you can't hear anything, you can't see anything, you're not sleeping. And because of the patterned stimulus in your ears and your eyes are open, you don't really fall asleep either. What happens is you go pretty quickly, within a couple of minutes, into the state like a hypnagogic state. It's the state that just when you're falling asleep, you start having images come, they could be very vivid, and this Ganzfeld condition stimulates that. So you think of it as after a couple of minutes of this uniform background stimulation, you become starved for something different. And so you become really, really sensitive to any kind of impression that's coming internally or externally. So that's the person who will play the role of the receiver in a telepathy experiment.
Got it.
Now, remote, located at a distant place and shielded from this receiver, the experimenter hands the sender a randomly selected picture. It's typically 1 picture out of a pool of 4 possible pictures. So they give them one that was selected at random. Neither the sender or receiver had any idea in advance what that picture would be. But the sender's task is to mentally send that information to the receiver. In some designs, you have the receiver speak aloud anything that comes to mind, any kind of impression. And you take a one-way audio link from the receiver, back to the sender. So whatever the sender is doing mentally to try to send the information, they can hear the receiver speaking aloud. So they can kind of adjust their sending strategy to help the receiver get the information that they're trying to send. So what I just described is it would take 3 or 4 people to do the experiment, the 2 subjects, a couple of experimenters. It might take 90 minutes for the whole experiment to take place. The receiver, after 20 minutes of sending, the receiver is taken out of the Ganzfeld condition, is shown 4 pictures, one of which was the one that the sender was trying to send, along with 3 decoys. And so the receiver's job then is to select, based on their impressions, which of the 4 pictures they thought was being sent to them. So by chance, you'd get it 1 in 4 times,
sure,
25%.
Right.
What we see after more than 4,000 sessions of this type, conducted in over 20 labs around the world, is 32%. So rather than getting it correct 1 in 4 times, it's correct about 1 in 3 times. Well, that doesn't sound very good until you do the statistics on this to find out, well, is this due to chance or not? Well, no, it's not due to chance. The odds against chance are beyond the quadrillion to 1, 1,000 trillion to 1, that you would get a 32% hit rate when 25% is chance. So that's how you can tell under very rigorous conditions with a very simple statistical method that people are getting more information. The receiver is getting more information than they should if all they were doing was simply selecting a picture at chance.
And what about taking it to another level where they're not actually picking the picture, but they would have to draw what they were hopefully seeing or feeling?
That would be closer to a remote viewing experiment.
Right.
So a remote viewing experiment differs because typically there you don't get to see 4 pictures at the end. You only get to see the final result, the one result.
Right.
And also remote viewing involves sketching. So you would sketch, you try to get your internal impressions and sketch it, or sometimes use words on a piece of paper. That piece of paper then is given to a judge. Now the judge might see the actual target and a couple of other targets, but the remote viewer typically doesn't, because you don't want to confuse the remote viewer with, in their future, seeing multiple targets. They should only see the one target that is the real one.
Are you born, not you specifically, Dean, but is one born a remote viewer, or is this something that actually could be taught?
There's definitely a talent associated with this. The talent seems to run in families, so there's probably a genetic basis. But everybody can learn to some degree, in the same sense that everybody can learn how to play tennis to some degree, but not everybody's going to become a professional tennis player.
Remote viewing, out of all of these talents, remote viewing is the one thing that probably freaks me out the most, and I can't think of another word to use. When I see it done in real time, and I see the results, and I see the targets, it's pretty astounding to me. That is it's something that I can't express or put into words. It really, really freaks me out.
Yeah, and the freak out is exactly one of the reasons why this topic is considered to be so controversial. It's partially the freak out because it doesn't seem like we're struggling to figure out how can this be. It's also that we don't see high-level talent of this type very often. But by the same token, there are people who run ultra marathons. Like they can run 24 hours in a row at a rate of 5 miles per hour. That's crazy. That freaks me out. Occasionally on TV you watch one of these CrossFit training things.
Yes.
Where there's a competition. Well, those people are not normal.
Right. Yeah, so, certainly the exception. And let's take a break right here. We've got so much more to discuss, and we're quickly running out of time. Our guest tonight is Dean Radin. We're discussing his new book, Real Magic. And let's just do what we're doing and doing it best. Let's pick up where we left off right after this short break. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Dean Radin right after this. Stay with us.
everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out. That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-717-WAVE, 888-717-WAVE, or visit dryhealthyhome.com. Dryhealthyhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
So, are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482? No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony. Damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Dean at Dean Radin on Twitter. Radin. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Lots of great insights going on here in Twitter. And, Dean, before we move on, I've got a couple of questions. This is from Stephen, and he says, I'd love to hear Dean Radin's take on the meta-analysis study released in May on parapsychological phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. So this might refer to an article in a journal called the American Psychologist. American Psychologist is the flagship journal of the American Psychological Association, which is 120,000 academic psychologists and clinical psychologists. So it's a big deal in the psychological world. This was an article by a colleague named Etzel Cardinha, who's a professor at a university in Sweden. And it's a lead article talking about 10 classes of psychic experiments. Like we discussed one about telepathy, and there's one about psychokinesis, but there's 8 other classes of experiments. And basically, he concludes that the overall evidence for the existence of these phenomena is overwhelming, positive. So this is important partially because the article appeared. It appeared in a major psychology journal, and also that it appeared in a positive way. Because what often happens in journals is that it's okay for an academic to publish an article which shows no effect, because that matches the mainstream idea about what's going on here. So it's fairly easy to publish a negative article. It's been very, very difficult to publish a positive article. And this article is very positive. So it's one of a number of signs that I think is showing that there's a loosening of the prejudices in the past within the scientific community that is at least allowing people to now discuss these ideas without immediately dismissing them. And that's a big change.
What was the analysis that was used?
Well, meta-analysis is a statistical technique to integrate the results of many repeated experiments. Because, for example, if we did one telepathy experiment with one session and the person got it right, you're not going to conclude that telepathy exists because by chance they could have gotten it right 1 in 4 times. So you do the experiment and then you might get a good result and you're not sure you believe it, so you do it again and you do it again and you keep doing it again. And as I said, it's been done over 4,000 times, and all of that is gaining confidence about the overall result. So the meta-analysis is an analysis of analyses. That's what the meta part means.
Right.
And it's a way of assessing whether or not is this really a repeatable effect that independent people can get or not. Well, this method that's been developed now for a couple of decades has become better and better at being able to analyze whether the effect is repeatable, which is the currency in science. And so there's 10 classes of psychic experiments that are now repeatable.
Why isn't this type of testing and study on the cover of Time magazine? Right? I mean, this is a breakthrough, and this is something that the entire planet's been fascinated with for thousands of years. And we have a breakthrough study like this. I would think that Wolf Blitzer would be talking about it.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But as you already mentioned, that the notion that remote viewing is real freaks you out. And it freaks a lot of people out.
Right.
Because we each of us build up a common sense notion of how we think the world works. And these phenomena strongly challenge that. But it doesn't challenge it too much more than if you really understood what's going on in quantum mechanics. Because these phenomena are actually quite compatible with the reality suggested by quantum mechanics. But quantum mechanics is not part of everyday experience. We can't see at the subatomic level, but in experiments we can, and we see all kinds of very weird stuff going on that is not common sense at all. So anytime something challenges common sense, it's not surprising that people will say that's ridiculous. They can't possibly be, even though it is.
We're going to get to quantum mechanics here in just a second, but Cassandra, this is great. She says, any thoughts on how divining rods work?
Yeah, I was just discussing that today with somebody who I know is a very good dowser.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to jump in and tell you that my wife and I were talking about this last night.
There you go.
Serious.
See?
Okay.
So it's a topic whose time has come.
Yes.
The current theory is that some of it might be psychic, especially what's called map dowsing, right? If you're trying to find a missing object somewhere and you only have a map and you're dowsing over the map and you're nowhere near the actual site, well, that's got to be psychic. That's a kind of remote viewing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a field and you're dowsing for water or minerals or something, then there's a lot of other possibilities. That we know that humans are sensitive to magnetic fields. We know that the Earth's magnetic field saturates everything on the planet. And so maybe some people are just naturally very sensitive to distortions in the lines of force. And so they can tell that there's like a vein of water or ore underneath where they are because they feel a shift in the magnetic lines of force. So that's possible. And because there are many possible explanations, we can't say in any given case what the right answer is. So between map dowsing and field dowsing, there probably are sets of possible explanations. And some people are exceptionally good dowsers, just like there's some people who are exceptionally good remote viewers.
With the dowsing rods usually are made of metal, at least the ones that I have seen. And if you're walking over out in a field, like you said, and you're looking for water or minerals, well, there is very real possibility of something electromagnetic going on, something happening there. But if it was plastic dowsing rods, right? I don't know if people, but then I'm going somewhere with this. I think it's a fascinating thing, but I've also kind of noticed people moving their wrist a little bit, right?
Sure, but remember that the traditional dowsing rod is made out of a willow tree. It's made out of wood.
Made out of wood.
Yeah. So it still could be sensitive to electromagnetic changes, but I don't think that the rod itself has anything to do with it. It's really about a human sensitivity to something, which then is translated probably unconsciously through the tiny little motor movements that the person is making.
Now, you just brought up quantum mechanics, and I do want to talk about magic and science because, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, quantum computers, qubits, parallel worlds, things affecting something that you can't even see, but yet we are now building chips and using it for hardware for computing. That is magic 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Forget about science fiction. You could definitely define that as they wouldn't even accept that idea. But here it is today. Quantum computers, quantum mechanics, quantum theory is as real as anything. And I would say that would have been a magic classification any time in the past. But where else would magic apply into science today? How would it help each other?
So one of the things in my book, Real Magic, where I get into quantum mechanics and actually beyond a little bit, is that the moment you get to the idea where you can accept that the data says that psychic phenomena are basically like magical practice, they are real, well, then how does it work? And that's been a sticking point for a long time. We don't know exactly how it works. But what I'm proposing then in this book is that if it is true that the esoteric traditions are right, and somehow consciousness is way more fundamental than we currently think it is, maybe even more fundamental in the physical world, then you start to see a relationship between what quantum mechanics is telling us about reality and what magic tells us. So the only reason why psychic phenomena in particular are considered strange is because they seem to transcend space and time, right? You mentally communicate with somebody at a distance. Well, how did it get there? We know it's not electromagnetic because lots of tests have been done that exclude electromagnetism as the carrier of how you get information from one person to the next. And then when you go to remote viewing, it's even worse because how can you describe a scene which is a couple of kilometers away or on the other side of the planet?
On the other side of the planet, right.
Yeah, or worse, on the other side of the planet next Tuesday.
Right.
With precognition or retrocognition.
Right.
It's very difficult to figure out how that can be, but the reason why it seems strange is because the phenomena transcend the ordinary boundaries of space and time. But exactly the same thing can be said of quantum mechanics. That's when quantum mechanics are called weird. The weirdness is that the effects, like quantum entanglement, do not appear to take place in space-time. They're taking place outside of space-time. So this opens the possibility that what we see in quantum mechanics is something that is transcending the ordinary world of space and time, that phenomenon, that strangeness, is the same strangeness as we see in psychic phenomena. So some physicists would say, well, that's nonsense. You're trying to compare two things which are not associated with each other at all. Other physicists are not so sure. In fact, there's this book that was written by two physicists, professors, called Quantum Enigma, which is a very good way of seeing from a physicist's perspective the why consciousness is considered to be so strange and what it has to do with physics. I asked them while they were writing the book, what did they think about parapsychology? And before they started, they said, no, I don't think we buy these phenomena at all. It's just too bizarre. After they finished the book, and I asked them the same question, well, now what do you think about it? They said, well, now it looks a lot more plausible.
They're writing a book called Quantum Enigma. That's exactly what they're writing about.
Yeah.
What is it that they proved to themselves where they had that moment, that aha moment?
It was finding that there's something peculiar about consciousness which is deeply related to quantum mechanics. And of course, they're not the only ones who have seen this connection. Most of the founders of quantum mechanics were saying right off from the very beginning that something about consciousness, awareness, seems to be involved in the behavior of quantum systems. So that's where the connection is. Some people will immediately jump and say, well, quantum mechanics explains psychic phenomena, and it doesn't do that. All it does is say that the reality that is suggested by quantum mechanics, the strange place where space and time are somehow transcended, that reality is very compatible with the experiences that people talk about. It doesn't mean it's an explanation yet, but it's showing at least that what used to be said, that psychic phenomena violate what we know about physics, that is no longer true. It does not violate what we know about physics.
The question then, and this comes in from Scott, I was going to go here anyway, then is magic real? Right? Is magic real, or is there something else here that we're not comprehending in reality?
Well, I would put it, is divination real? Yes. Is power of will or manifestation real? Yes. Is theurgy real? Yes. And all of that is based not on esoteric lore, but on controlled experiments in the laboratory. So as I mentioned in this article, an American psychologist is looking at the 10 classes of repeatable experiments that are positive, and those are all talking about these kinds of magical practices. So yeah, magic is real. By saying that, what will happen in many people's minds is they will conflate it suddenly into Harry Potter is real. And no, Harry Potter is not real. And what you see in movies is not real. Those are, of course, fictional elaborations of the real stuff. But the basic phenomena are real. The other thing I want to add to that, though, is that even some of my colleagues in parapsychology were kind of surprised that I wrote a book about magic, because it seems like it's unseemly for a scientist to talk about magic as though it's real. But when I finished the book, I realized that this actually is a book about science and philosophy and evidence and so on. So rather than asking my psychic friends to see if they would endorse the book, I only went to scientists. And so this book, Real Magic, has been endorsed by 2 Nobel laureates, by one in chemistry and one in physics, by a former program director at the National Science Foundation, by the president of the American Statistical Association, by major prize winners from the National Institutes of Health and the National Academy of Sciences, and many other mainstream university professors in science and scholarship. So we sometimes think that, well, no mainstream scientist would ever want to endorse a book about magic, but actually they do. So the other piece of this is a couple of months ago, I was in Germany giving a talk for the company Merck, which is best known for pharmaceuticals, but they also make materials and a few other things. So this is a big international science conference with 35 speakers, 5 of whom were Nobel laureates, and also Craig Venter, who's the first person to sequence the human genome, a special address by the CEO of Microsoft, lots of very prominent people. And I also was invited to be one of the speakers. So in some slice of mainstream science now, there is a significant opening to magic. I was talking about magic at this science conference. And the reason is that the evidence now, the nature of the scientific evidence is so strong that unless somebody simply doesn't want to believe it, which people can believe whatever they want.
Right.
But if you're a scientist and you look at the data and you look at the results that we get, it's very difficult at this point to deny that these phenomena exist. And so the connection then back to magic is exactly as they said. The practice in magic is called divination. Practice in the laboratory is called precognition. It's the same thing.
I was talking with Julia about this last night, Mossbridge, in that today's science, is as far as they have come, is finding out more and more that they don't understand anything, right? That's really the truth, and it's the bottom line. I wanted to ask you this before we have to part ways and say goodnight. If you were in court, right, you're in magic court, and you've got James Randi as the judge, right? He's sitting up on the bench. And you've got to present the one piece of evidence to show that magic and science are not only one and the same, but this is proving that magic is real. And you need to shut Randi up. What are you going to slide across the evidence table? What's that one thing?
Well, first I would take about a semester to train Randi how to understand statistics and experimental design. Because if the only thing that Randi would accept was somebody levitating in front of him,
right,
we're not there. We can't do that. So you have to understand how to evaluate evidence. If we're going to demonstrate an experiment, I would probably do one on presentiment, which you may have talked about with Julia. So this is an unconscious physiological form of precognition. There's now been something like 4 dozen repeated experiments, and it's a very real effect. It's not difficult to do. And what it shows is that you unconsciously, as reflected by how your body is changing, your nervous system, we unconsciously can anticipate somewhere between 3 and 10 seconds before something happens. And you can see that by measuring things like heart rate and pupil dilation and other physiological measures.
Right.
So that's a fairly easy experiment to run. The results are fairly robust. It would still take multiple trials by multiple people to reach a stage where you're able to say, well, here, this is the result of the experiment, and it worked. So something like that. But again, if you're dealing with somebody who will only accept levitation in front of them, we can't do that, not on demand.
What can you leave our audience with? Something very simple that they could practice and start to understand magic.
So one chapter in the book is about magical practice, and I talk about 2 of the most elementary forms of practice, one of which is called writing magic, where you simply write down what you want, and I give instructions on how to do that. And the other one is called sigil magic, which is very similar, except that rather than writing it, you make a little symbol. A sigil means symbol. You make a symbol for the thing that you want, and then there's a way of so-called charging it and intentionally focusing on it. And since I put it in the book, and one of the examples for a sigil was that you make a sigil to find $10, and then I would want people to tell me afterwards, does it work? Well, one person found $1, and the next person who mentioned something found something like $17,000. And it wasn't that she found a pile of cash on the floor, but she found that she was due this big pile of money that she was unaware of before, but she went through the magical process and then came upon this big bunch of money that she was due to get. And so she attributed it to doing the exercise.
You know, now I almost feel like James Randi right now, where I'm going to go, come on. But see, the thing is you're a scientist, Dean, and now you're suggesting something like this. That's pretty powerful stuff for the audience. Now, the audience is open-minded, but you're also a scientist suggesting sigil magic.
Right. Well, sigil magic or writing magic are just ways of focusing intention. We have lots and lots of experiments that are all about intention. So while sigil magic comes out of ancient times, when people are doing these kinds of tasks, all it really is a way to focus one's attention. That's what it is. So we know that works in a more abstract way in the laboratory. In the case of a lady finding a huge amount of money, it could be a coincidence. That's why we can't place a lot of confidence on anecdotes. But you could read about her experience by going to Amazon and looking at the reviews, because she actually wrote it in the review of the book. And then I don't know this lady, and I didn't ask her to write that. It's just what her experience was.
What a great conversation tonight, Dean. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I got to get up to Noetic. I've got to come up there. I've seen the pictures and videos for so many years, and it just looks like the ultimate wonderful place to go and hang out.
Well, you're welcome anytime.
Thank you so much, Dean. Where can everybody go and get the book right now?
Any place online that sells books and any store that sells books.
Is it at noetic.org?
No. Go to Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble. It turns out that the audiobook version is selling the best. And the audiobook version was read by the voice artist who does the Dan Brown books. So I was very happy to be able to select him to be the reader, and it makes a big difference because you don't want me to read a book for 8 hours.
Or me. Thank you so much, Dean. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Dean Radin. Okay, very simple. DeanRadin.org, Noetic.org, and of course you can find Real Magic over at Amazon, and we have the links up at JimmyChurchRadio.com. All right, I'm going to take a quick break right here, and I'm going to open up the phone line. So let's go. We'll do a little bit of Fader Night, a little taste of Fader Night, and I'll open up the phone lines and take your phone calls next. I'll be right back. Stay with me.
Here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter,
but listening to Jimmy Church will.
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Tappy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Tappy.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and my family is safe because of Numana Emergency Food Storage. Just go to the Numana banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code Jimmy10.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black, our last show this week. I want to thank Dean Radin, PhD, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, the chief scientist. Amazing conversation tonight. And you can follow Dean at Dean Radin. That's R-A-D-I-N, at Dean Radin on Twitter. And go and get the book. The book, Real Magic, is an amazing read. And when you're dealing with everything at a scientific level and going into these fringe topics that are fringe to society, but not to us, it's great. And I know that line is blurring between not only parapsychology and science, but everything when we're talking about telepathy and telekinesis and ESP and remote viewing, all of that. So thank you, Dean. An amazing conversation. Now, let's do a little mini Fader Night. All right? I'm going to open up all the phone lines. Everybody stay right there if you're on hold. But the numbers are 323-825-5045 or 323-275-9695 or 818-921-6929. Let's go to Naptown, Indianapolis. You're up on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Allison. How are you?
Whoa. Hold on a minute. How are you, Allison?
I'm excellent.
Man, I haven't talked to you in like a month of Sundays.
Well, that's because the last time I was on the air, I was a very bad girl.
Is that right? Is that right?
Oh, Lord. Yep.
Well,
Yep.
obviously,
It was very bad.
I've blocked the memory. I guess you were bad. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I was, and I'm glad you blocked the memory.
Okay, there you go. What's on your mind tonight, Allison? Great conversation tonight.
Oh, that's why I'm calling. This was just superlative. In my opinion, and of course, everybody who reads my blogs knows that's all I'm full of is my own opinion.
Sure.
This issue is the absolute crux of everything that we're looking at. It is the intersect of phenomena, UFOs, skinwalker, you name it.
Well, how so? How so, Allison?
Consciousness. Okay? It is the reason why it's the crux is because all of these issues seem to be dependent upon how we interact with them, the quantum effect. In other words, how we are able to, what your intent is what your experience will be. And a lot of people don't understand that. And there was a great blog post on YouTube today that I actually blogged about that took this into account. But when you take a look at what Dean is saying and what he's studying and how he's putting it all out there, he is taking this intersect between quantum mechanics and consciousness and showing you what the intersect is. We've been separated for so many years between science and what people like to call spiritual issues, and really they're one and the same. And that's all I do on my blog is yell about this.
Right.
I mean, I get boring after a while, but hey, it's very, very important. And what he symbolizes, what he's doing, the work that he's doing is enabling the scientific community to find some sort of unity with the rest of this. He's making spiritual issues materialistic science in a way that says we can measure this, we can show you how this works. And if you follow Grant Cameron, and I agree with him totally, consciousness is the issue. Consciousness is everything. And I've been writing consciousness is the unified field for, the last 4 years, 5 years, I don't know, however long I've been writing. And it's true. And I just get so excited when I hear people like me. Well, it's like, yes.
Yeah. And you're right. Last night and talking about time travel with Julia, all of the guests that we've talked about time travel with, where would you go? What would you do? And I've often had this crazy thought, you travel to the future. And so you're talking with people or you're watching TV or something. And it's just like, okay, so give me something. And you hear these magical words, okay, here in the future, we figured out consciousness, right? That's the Holy Grail. That's what you'd want to hear. Not that we figured out parallel worlds or we figured out folding space and time. Well, those things are a given. We're going to get there. But what about figuring out consciousness? Right? Now we're on to something.
Folding space and time is an issue of consciousness.
Could be. I don't have a clue, but it could be.
It is. And it's like, God, I always get so nervous when I call into the show and I have all this, I can't get it out of my mouth. If you study what...
You're so funny. When I sit with you in person, you don't have a problem talking. What's the deal here?
Just smack me. It's really hard on the radio. But okay. The quantum observer effect is the key to time travel. And it's not just It's not just what you think. It's the emotion you put into it. It's the intent you put into it. It's the entire ball of wax. It is the quantum of beingness, which is going to enable us to be able to fold time and space. It's like Grant Cameron interviews people who fly, quote unquote, the ship. And the interface between the consciousness of the person and the ship enables you to go wherever you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it is my opinion that when you sit and you imagine things or you daydream, you're actually going places and doing things. When you are in a dream state, you're actually going places and doing things. We are so locked into the 3D solid mental materialistic science, which has its place but isn't the end all be all of everything, that we are unable to understand the quantum part of who we are. We're afraid of it. We are discombobulated. We have no way of navigating anything past what you can see and touch. And that is only one tiny, tiny, itty bitty little piece of the electromagnetic spectrum, which we're swimming in at all times.
That's why you are Allison Bell, right there.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I could go on for, and it would take forever to explain it. But Dean Reed was so cool. Oh, thank you. It was wonderful. It was just wonderful.
And you have a great rest of your evening, and have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you, and I will. And this was the whole week was actually quite excellent.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Yeah,
it really was. It was great. Thank you.
Somebody pinched me. Thank you so much, Allison.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Right back at you. Allison Bell right there. Let's go to area code 405. You're up next on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy. This is Betzel McGee.
This is who?
Betzel McGee. Miss Kelly's student.
Okay, Miss Kelly's student. You've stumped the panel.
The guy with the Mars dream.
The guy with the Mars dream?
The Mars dream that you were in?
Oh, Kelly. Oh, Kelly, so that's all you had to do. You could have gone, come on, man. You got to help me a little more than that. How you doing, man?
Good. I wanted to recommend a book.
What's that?
There's a book called The Magical Use of Thought Forms, and it's put out by a group called the Sons of Light. I think they're associated with the Madame Blavatsky group.
Okay, hold on for a second. Can you take me off a speaker?
I don't think I have you on the speaker. I'm in the garage, but...
Okay, it just sounds a little funky to me. Okay, continue. What was the name of the book?
It's called The Magical Use of Thought Forms.
Okay.
And it's from the Sons of Light group, who are associated with Madame Blavatsky. And they kind of teach you about how creating images and stuff in your mind helps you to be able to manifest things in the physical reality. And it deals with the way that the mind is structured, with the superconscious mind, the subconscious mind, and then with the emotional level, being able to birth those thought images from those levels of mind out into the physical.
Can you tweet it out? Can you get the book up there on Twitter for everybody?
Yeah. I guess after I'm done off the call, I can see if I can find it on Amazon.
And it was called The Magical Book of...
Magical Use of Thought Forms.
Of Thought Forms. I got it. When was it written?
Oh, boy. I think 1995.
And but it's a group of Blavatsky followers?
Yeah. I think they're kind of like a a metaphysical society similar to the Rosicrucians.
Oh, okay, I got you. I'm looking at the book here, A Proven System of Mental and Spiritual Empowerment. Okay, all right. I'll get it up there on Twitter, and I'll check it out myself and get the book. That looks like a good read.
Yeah. Oh, also too, I was wanted to bring up something too, because they were talking. He was talking about using sigils, and that is something that people really do need to be careful with. If you've studied any of the Kabbalistic literature on the use of sigils.
Okay, you're breaking up. I can barely hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Okay. So you're warning everybody about sigils to be careful.
Right. They basically need to do a fair amount of studying before going into the whole sigil thing, because a lot of the letters that are used to create the sigils in, say, like the Kabbalistic lore or in the Yggdrasil lore, are symbols of energy forces of creation.
Yeah, well, there's that part, but there's also creating your own sigil, like a dollar sign or a heart.
Right.
Right? And,
that's very true.
Yeah, and over on Joshua P. Warren, if you go to his website, he's got some sigils there that you can download and print out that mean different things. And I did. As a matter of fact, for probably for a couple of weeks, I used one of them as a screensaver. Right? It was my wallpaper. And I did. I printed out a couple of them, and that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say which ones or why or if they worked or not. That's not even the point. But it is fun to do. And at least you're in a little bit of a safe zone. I'm totally with you. Right. Just like anything else in this strange world that we're in. If you don't know anything about it, don't mess with it. If you don't know what you're doing, don't play around. And I think that's always the best thing. It's like a Ouija board, right? Don't play around. Thank you for the phone call, and tell Kelly I said yo, okay?
Oh, okay. Oh, hey, one more question. Are you going to get that lady with the Ouija board back on?
That's Karen Dahlman, absolutely. Okay?
That was an awesome show.
I know. I had so much fun doing it. So we'll do that again real soon. Thank you so much.
Okay. Catch you later.
Have a great weekend. And the Dream on Mars. I ended up getting a little bit more detail on that too as well. I'll share that with you at a later date. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black, area code 602.
Hi, it's Natasha Nick.
Hey, Natasha, speak up. I can barely hear you.
How about now?
Oh, there you go.
Now?
How
Better?
are you? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. So I've been checking out your post, and I never do this, but I did go and listen to a piece of our interview together. I did it out of curiosity because it was such a crazy day. But the thing is, I'm talking about what was going on around us. I remember having the most the funnest conversation with you, but to be honest, I can't listen to myself. I can't do it. You know? I'm only good for about.
It was a great interview.
It was a lot of fun.
I thought you were so personable. It was great.
It was a lot of fun. You know what I do remember about it? I remember people stopping it and listening to us. Right? And that I do. So I thought, well, you know what? Natasha's pretty good, and we're having a good time here. So much so that we're holding their interest. Right? So I guess.
Exactly. People were really interested.
How's the show going? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. The show is going well. I didn't call to promote my show. I called because I was watching. I thought you had a great show tonight. And I wanted to kind of throw my idea in the ring that I submit that Buddhist monks and people who have done years of meditation, these people are kind of messing with that quantum entanglement in terms of marriage between consciousness and science and that exploration of that realm through consciousness. I would say some high-level Buddhist monks have a bead on that. What do you think about that?
No question about it. Absolutely no question about it. And if you think about it, when you go anywhere with those traditions, not only with Buddhist monks, but let's talk about the Himalayas and what's going on up in Tibet, right? Where these traditions go back a long, long ways, and they have tapped into something. They may not even know what it is, right? At the quantum level. But there is absolutely something going on there. There's no question about it. You know what? There was something else, though, that Dean said that I wanted to go back and visit, where he said that James Randi would only accept levitation, right, as evidence.
Correct.
And I thought that was pretty interesting, because I wanted to go back and look at some of the other traditions that have been going on in different cultures around the world that dealt with just that, with levitation. And the levitation that we're talking about here may only be very short, but that there is something going on there at the quantum level, that they are affecting a whole lot of small things very slightly.
Yes.
Right? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Correct, yeah. And I think that adds to the idea of group consciousness and group efforts at something like that, where you can magnify that energy and that effect.
Mass meditation. That's one of I meant to see. This is the thing, Natasha. I don't have questions, right? I don't write stuff out. I don't make notes. I just flow through the show, and I know my guest and the subject, and I like to have fun with that. I don't like to be constrained with trying to ask a question or trying to get to a thought. But that was something else that I wanted to ask Dean about, was mass meditation and what is going on with that. Because, again, at the quantum level, something is happening there, because we can see everything change. Crime levels drop. People are calm. Things happen instantaneously. And what does he think is going on there? There must be a way to scientifically test it, don't you think?
Absolutely. I would say a clue in that direction would be biofeedback, where people have learned to control their heartbeat and blood pressure and other physiological responses through consciousness.
Well, and he brings up random number generators. That's one thing. But what about internet search terms, right? Or internet traffic, or spikes of internet traffic because of consciousness and thought?
Of course. And, I've even thought about that in terms of the Super Bowl. Imagine a whole arena full of people focusing on these players, and all these people want these different outcomes, but there's only one of two outcomes possible. One team is going to win, one team is going to lose. And you have all of these people with their focused attention on the performance of these athletes. If you're going to push the boundaries of this kind of thought, it could even come down to things like that. But I think that this ties in on a deeper level with EVPs and the long history of, for lack of a better term, disembodied entities or strange phenomena affecting telephones. There have been telephone calls. There have been EVPs. People left phone messages from people who had been deceased. And there's a long history of this interaction between electronic equipment and these other realms, other dimensions, perhaps might be a better term, of our universe. And I just think that we live in a multidimensional universe, and this stuff kind of bleeds through from dimension to dimension. And I think one day science will figure it out, and I think they'll explain it through science, ultimately. But I think that they're going to find that the ultimate tool of exploration for science is consciousness, that direct experience will one day be accepted as evidence or proof of different principles.
Now, wait a minute here. If I got a phone call from the other side,
Yes.
I think I'm kind of freaked out. I mean, that almost sounds scary, especially on the time of day. You know, you get that at 2:00 in the morning in a dark room.
Right.
I'm not so sure if are you okay with that?
Well, I don't know about okay. I find it intellectually interesting. I don't know. I think if we can divorce our emotional responses to some of these things and use our intellect and kind of turn the coin around and look at the other side, look at it, kind of backwards. And because, we're wired to respond to strange phenomena with fear or repulsion because that's what kept us safe and allowed us to, survive. So that's a given. But, well,
I'm the intellectual side for me. I'm cool with that.
Yes.
I just don't want to be a participant in the experiment. I don't know if and I'm being serious. Listen, I gotta wrap the show, but where can everybody go and listen to you and find your stuff?
You can go to my YouTube channel, which is Mysterious Forces Live. And I have a canned interview with you that was audio only, Richard Dolan, some other folks. The show's evolving, so that's the main hub. And you can find me on Facebook at Mysterious Forces Live, and on Twitter, it's at My Forces Live. Thank you so much, Jimmy. I appreciate you letting me plug my show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. And what about Twitter? Where are you at on Twitter?
Twitter, Mysterious Forces Live, and then to contact me is at My Forces Live.
I was just looking for my audio drop for you, and I can't find it. I've got it, so I was going to play it right now. All right, we'll do it next time.
Thank you so much. You had a great show tonight.
You know what? It was a great week, too, as well. But, I'm so happy that you called in. It's about time.
Great. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon. And come on my show. Please come on my show.
I was just on your show. Now you need to come on mine.
Yeah, but that was in June. No, I do a live stream broadcast.
Okay.
It's only 30 minutes. Only 30 minutes of your time.
There you go. I'll do it anytime you need me.
All right. Awesome. Jimmy, have a good night and have a good weekend.
Thank you, Natasha. Again, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
Good night.
I just want to say we were at Contact in the Desert, and Natasha invited me over, for an interview. We went around the corner, had the most amazing setup. Now, so here, Fade to Black, right? And we show up out there and we're doing our live show, and I walk around the corner, and Natasha had the studio setup of doom. Digital console, RE20 microphones, headphone amps, this setup. And I'm like, what's going on here? Look at you. Absolutely professional. And so everybody go and check it out, Mysterious Forces Live. I got to get out of here. We're going to go and find us a taco truck and start our weekend. So everybody out there, just have a great, safe, awesome, fun weekend. The week that we had here on Fade to Black was incredible. What we've got happening for everybody else next week, just wait till Monday. And I'm not joking. Fade to Black's executive producer is Riddick Marion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitola, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew, the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. It's broadcast owned and copyrighted 2018 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. That's it. That's another week down for Fade to Black. We're going to go start our weekend right now. We'll see you on Monday. Until then, everybody be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.